What's up, Deep Space Syndicate? I hope everyone's doing well. I'm putting together this video to show how to design and get ready to engineer your ships because I know that's something that we're working on over the next couple of weeks. So I wanted to put this together and make it easy for everyone to kind of figure out and have something to refer back to. You should see in front of you my Inara page. I'm on the home page of Inara. The first thing you're going to want to do, we're going to be using two different websites for this build primarily. One is Inara, of course, and then the other one is Coriolis. The first thing you want to do is you want to make sure you're signed into Inara. It should say your commander name there in your top right corner. And if this button right here, the Import Frontier Data button, is not blue or it doesn't say enabled, you want to make sure that you import it. You'll get to a screen like this. You hit Import Frontier Data. It might take you to the FDev website, and you'll have to click on Xbox and sign in with your Xbox account. If not, it'll look like that, and you'll be good to go. That's going to be very, very helpful later on. But for now, let's start over on Coriolis. So let me transition us right there real quick. This is Coriolis. It's got the specs of every single ship in the game, and you can use this website to design and build whatever ship it is you may desire. So for the sake of time today, I'm going to do a small build. We're going to do Cobra Mark III. But for anyone who is looking to do a larger build, that is absolutely something that we can do. I highly recommend doing either mediums or larges, and we'll be meeting with everyone just to kind of figure out what the right build is for you. But anyways, I've pulled this up. It's a Cobra Mark III. Now this is how it comes stock. We're going to be able to use this to design our build, but let me walk you through this real quick. Obviously, you've got your current speed and your boost speed. Now this is with a full fuel tank and all of your pips to engines, or 4 pips to engines. Same with both of those. Your jump ranges, so your max jump range is just optimized. Unladen is when you're not carrying anything, and laden is when you have full cargo, full fuel, everything. Then let's see, some of these numbers don't really matter, but important ones to keep an eye out, especially since we're doing combat builds. Damage per second, your DPS, is how much damage you're doing with all of your weapons firing at the same time. E per sec, energy per second, is how much energy you're using with all weapons firing. Time to drain is really important right here. This number is going to be how quickly your weapons run out and you have to let them recharge. And that's with all 4 pips to your weapons. Cargo capacity is good to know, but not really important for a combat ship. I'm hoping you're not putting cargo racks on your combat ships. Boost interval is one that's going to be important in combat. It's with 4 pips to engines, how frequently you're going to be able to hit that boost button. And then your shield strength and your hull strength, and we'll get back into that in a little bit. So we're going to do this Cobra Mark III. Now the first thing that's really easy to do if you're doing this on a desktop, if you're doing it on your phone or whatnot, it'll take you a little bit longer, but if you right click just at the top of each column, you can clear them and restore them to defaults. So obviously you have to have core internals so those won't disappear, but you'll notice it's actually what it did there is it optimized it for jump range without any engineering. So we're going to go through here. This is going to be a beam and multi-cannon Cobra Mark III build that I just whipped together. So it's probably not the best build in the world, but it'll be a good example for what we're going to do. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to go military grade composites. Power plant, we're going to put a 4A, thrusters 4A. You always want the highest number and A for your thrusters, particularly on a combat build, because that's going to give you the most performance. Frame shift drive, we're going to leave as a 4A. We do want that jump range. Life support, I'm going to leave as 3D. So D is the lightest weight, which means we're going to have more jump range. We're also going to have higher speeds by losing that weight. Distributor, I'm going to go 3A. Sensors, I'm going to leave as 3D. Actually, we're going to go 3A on the sensors because we want that extra range. And we'll leave the fuel tank as is. So we're going to start out there. There's our core internals. Now, one thing I usually like to do when I'm building ships is I like to not touch the power plant and power distributor until I've done everything else, because that's how I'm going to know what size. Obviously, like if you can save some weight, see the difference between a 4A and a 3A power plant. The 3A is actually half the weight. So you'll see that those speeds went up right there by going to the 3A. But when we go up to the 4A, you actually lose a little bit of speed there, not too much. But between the power plant distributor, power plant especially, you want to go as low as you can go. Let's see. All right, so we start with let's start with the hard points actually. So I know on this one I'm gonna have gimbaled beam, and it's a medium slot, so that's size 2. So I'm in this column right here, or this row right here. You can see you can choose fixed, gimbaled, or turreted. The differences between them: fixed are the hardest to hit with, but they do the most damage. Gimbaled are easier to target with. They have some form of tracking. And then turreted, they'll actually auto track your target for you, but they do the least damage. So I generally prefer gimbaled. So we're going to go gimbaled beam, and we're going to put some multi-cannons on here as well. So gimbaled multi-cannon and gimbaled multi-cannon. So there we've got that. And we can also add the engineering effects. So we'll go on here. I think for these, I'm going to run efficient beams with thermal conduit. You know, I'm just kind of picking something, but you see when you mouse over the effect, it actually shows you what that effect does. So this is grade 1 engineered, grade 2, grade 3, grade 4, grade 5. So you can see with grade 5, you're getting a 20 to 24% damage increase, a 35 to 45% distributor draw decrease. It's the decrease in how much power it's pulling from your distributor. And your power draw is also decreased, and the thermal load decreases, which is really good for beams. So that's why I went that thermal conduit efficient on both of those. With the multi-cannons, I'm going to go, let's see, I think I'll go overcharged, and one of them I'm going to make corrosive. And let's see, overcharged. See here we have an increased thermal load, increased distributor draw, but a lot of increased damage. I went corrosive on the first. I'm going to go incendiary on the other. And you should take some time to research all of the different experimental effects and what they do when you're doing this. Now, let's see. Let's go optional internal next. So obviously for this build, I'm going to want the biggest shield I can put on here. So we'll go down here. We've got a 4A shield generator, and I'm going to engineer this to be reinforced, and multi-weave increases the resistances, which I'll get to in a second. And I'm going to put one shield booster on here. The other one, I'm going to put a heat sink, and I'll talk about that in a second. But this shield booster, let's see, what do we want to do with this shield booster? We're going to go, so we're going to go thermal resistant. Got to click on that little, and thermal block. Now, so look at these shields real quick. What we've got going on here is you've got a whole set of numbers here. These are your resistances. I'm really hoping that the video includes my mouse here. But so these are the resistances. So this means that if you hit me with 100 DPS of explosive damage, 57.9% of that is going to be resisted, which means that 100 DPS you just hit me with is really only going to be 42.1%, or 42.1 DPS. Same with thermal. If you were to hit me with a multi-cannon that did 100 DPS, you'd only actually be doing 50.5 DPS to me. And so you have your absolute strength plus your resistances right here. So really the numbers you want to pay attention to most when you're designing your shield and your hull are going to be these 3 numbers for shield and these 3 numbers for hull. Notice my absolute strength of my shield is 203 megajoules, but because my explosive resistance is 57.9, I actually have 483 megajoules. Those are my hit points for the shield for explosive resistance. For kinetic resistance, 402. For thermal, 292. That's a little bit low. But this is also a small ship and a small build. So I'll go through the rest of here. I'm going to Whoops, sorry about that. The headset died real quick. So I actually have on my other monitor a this build already up. So I kind of know what I'm doing. I already designed it just to show everyone how this works. I'm going to do a heat sink and I'm going to do extra ammo capacity. And as I'm adding all of these experimental effects, it's worth noting that you may not have all of the engineers you need to do this unlocked yet. We can help you with that. Some of them will take time. Even with our help, it might take you um, longer than you'd like to unlock them. So just kind of pay attention to what the engineers do and what you have. So let's see here. Let me finish this up. Let me just finish this up off camera real quick to save you some time. All right, so I've got this build finished, and well, I'm still doing the experimental effects now. You'll notice I have a couple of shield cell banks here. If you haven't seen shield cell banks before, essentially they're extra batteries that you can pump into your shields. I have two of them on here, but they do heat up your ship a lot. So that's why instead of having two shield boosters for extra shield strength, I included a heat sink. And I engineered the heat sink for extra ammo capacity. And what that does for me is I can actually fire off two of these banks at the same time. You'll see each of them does 135.1 megajoules of shield reinforcement. So if I fire two of them at the same time while I'm taking damage, I will still recharge my shields completely. And you see I used 4B instead of 4A shield cell banks. I like to do that because even though the amount of reinforcement it does is lower, I actually get one extra bank. So if I were to go 4A shield cell bank, see I have 4 cells instead of 5. So that's why I like to go 4B. And generally, you end up with better overall shield, I guess, recharge using bees. You just have to bank more times. So here with 5 cells and 5 cells, if I'm double firing them, that's 5 fires. Each time will fully recharge my shields as long as I set them off right before my shields drop. And then I have 3 heat sinks. So the first 3 I'm going to be fine, and the last 2 times I use them, I'm going to cook my ship. But that's okay. Now I'm looking down here at the armor. And I've got a couple of hull reinforcements and one module reinforcement. Also my FSD interdictor. I'm going to do expanded capture arc on that. But I'm looking up here and look at this. My explosive resistance is terrible. So I think I'll engineer this one to be blast resistant and layered plating. So that brought that up. It was negative. Now it's positive. We'll do this one is going to be um, this one right here. We'll do heavy duty angled maybe. It's not too bad. I've also forgotten to engineer my hull for this one. I'm going to go thermal resistant reflective plating. So there my thermal resistance is decent. My explosive resistance is decent. Maybe I should have, instead of heavy duty, I should have gone kinetic resistant angled plating. So now these are all positives, but that explosive is pretty low here. So with this last one right down here, maybe we'll go blast resistant and layered plating again. That brought the kinetic down. But we can mess around with that. For the thrusters, I went dirty drag. That gives you the most speed possible. Frame shift drive, I'm going to want to increase my range. And then you have a couple options here. Deep charge lets your FSD use more fuel. So you can do a longer jump. Mass manager actually increases your optimal mass. So typically on class 5 and above FSDs, you want to go mass manager. 4 and below, you might want to go deep charge. Now, if you're struggling with power issues, one thing you can engineer for is this faster boot sequence instead of increased range. What that'll do for you is that you can turn off your FSD while you're in combat. And then when you turn it back on, if you go all the way up to 5, it'll only take 2 seconds to turn back on. Now, it doesn't mean your FSD charges quicker. It just means that you can turn it back on quicker. Let's see, power distributor right here. I'm going to want to go charge enhanced Generally, there's no reason to ever go anything other than either charge enhanced or engine focused, but for combat, you're going to want charge enhanced and super conduits, and that just increases the recharge rate of all of your different things. So as you move pips around, your systems, your weapons, your engines recharge more quickly. And let's see how we're doing here. So I don't know why those module reinforcements are grayed out, but let's see. So we can scroll down here, and this tells me the cost of the ship. I can also view the retrofit cost from stock, or if I have a different build that's already in Coriolis, I can see the retrofit from that. I can see profiles, so offensive profile, defensive profile, my speeds, and I can see how that's affected by if I were to put 4 pips into systems or into engines, you'll see my speed increase. If I hit boost, you see it increase even more. I can restore that. But this is a big warning right here. So you'll see that when my hard points are stowed, I'm fine, but when my hard points are deployed, I'm overpowered. Now that's not ideal because that means I'm not actually going to be able to fight with this thing. So what I want to do is I want to come up here to my power plant. Now I engineered this to be armored thermal spread, but we can actually overcharge it instead. And now we see we're good, so we can still get away with the thermal spread. And that's a build right there. Let's take a few moments to just look through this build and make sure that everything looks good. Boost interval is 5 seconds. That's great. That means that I'm going to be able to keep boosting pretty frequently. My shield strength isn't fantastic, but again, it's a small ship. So for a small ship, that's okay. And you'll see that all of these are higher than the absolute shield strength. My hit points are higher because my resistances are good. And so it's really a question of balancing absolute strength with resistances to just get the maximum hit points right there. Same thing with armor. My absolute's just shy of 1,000, but my hit points in each of these are over 1,000. And caustic is really more for fighting Thargoids, so I'm not going to worry about that right now. My speed, 418 meters per second. That is with 4 pips to engines, and boost is 597, so this is really quick. Time to drain is 38 seconds, which means I can keep firing with 4 pips into my weapons for 38 seconds before I run out of energy and have to recharge my weapons. So I can make a long pass on someone, and that's pretty solid. Yeah, so everything looks good here. So let's head over to Coriolis. Hold on one sec. Or to Inara. All right, so now we're on Inara, and let me pull this up in a separate window here so I can interact with it. So real quick, the Engineers tab. Oh, that's not working. One sec, let me see if I can fix this. Okay, I think I've got this fixed. So you can go over to Engineers, and you can see exactly what each one does, which each one unlocks. So for example, I could click on Farseer, and these are all the blueprints that Felicity Farseer will do for us. Now we're going to use, actually what we're going to do is we're going to go to view my crafting lifts right here. You can also get there by hitting blueprints and view my crafting lists. Now the quickest way to do this is to just add a blueprint to crafting list rather than going to the engineer and the blueprint each time. You can just hit add blueprint to crafting list. So for example, we did, let's see if this drop down will work for us. Beam laser. We said beam laser efficient. There we go. Now, one thing I like to do is these are the average number of rolls. You'll understand rolls if you've already done engineering. If not, just trust me on this. These are the average number of rolls it'll take to engineer each grade, but I like to up them 1 just to make sure I collect enough materials. So 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And then the experimental effect, we said we were going to do thermal conduit on these. And we have 2 of these, so we're going to put in two repetitions of that real quick, and we'll add that to the crafting list. And then let's see, let's do another one real quick. Let's do frame shift drive. We said increased range, again, same thing. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then the experimental effect there, we're going to go, I can't remember what we did, but I think I'm going to go strip down here. So you'll notice already it's telling me right here, and I could go through and do the rest of this build, but for time's sake, I'm not going to. It's telling me right here what it is that I'm missing. And if you look, you can actually go here to missing components. And this screen, so you have your ship locker right here, your components. This tells you everything that you have. And your exchange list will actually tell you the grade of the material, what the material it is, how many you're missing, and then what you can trade at a material trader for what you need. So here it's saying that I'm missing 5 selenium. Well, I could trade 100 to tin for 17 selenium. Now, obviously, I'm not going to need that much, but I can use this screen to figure out exactly what it is I'm missing. So as we go out and start farming materials, high grade emissions, crystal shards, Jameson crash site, I want to encourage everyone to start thinking about your builds, come up with the materials that you're going to need, and start using the material traders in conjunction with this page. It'll make your life so much easier. All right, I think that's it for today. So I'm going to stop this here and feel free to ask questions.